for boxing. All right, y'all. So, we see the saga unfolding with Tank Davis, being very boisterous about his opinion about Turki Alalshikh and about some of the things going on over there at Riyadh season and different cards that, Turki's putting on or having a party in, different events that are taking place that, he wasn't invited to and things of that nature. One thing I want to say about the whole situation is, Turki has voiced his disdain for Turki Alalshikh, almost out the gate. So my expectation is not for him to say anything favorable about anything that's going on that is involving Turki Alalshikh. So when I hear him complaining about fighters going over there chasing money and getting beat and such, to me, I kind of take it with a grain of salt. I hear it and don't hear it. The reality of it is that there are a lot of boxing fans, a lot of people who run channels who they share Tank sentiment, maybe not to the same degree when it comes to Turki Alalshikh. You got some complaining about fights being overseas that should be in America. Got some complaining about, Turki putting on events and promoters working with him and, stuff like that. My whole thing is this: if you're a boxing fan, at the end of the day, if you're seeing the fights, if you're getting the fights, that's what should matter. It shouldn't matter who's putting on the fights. You shouldn't really care what the fighters are getting paid. The venue shouldn't really matter, unless you plan on going to the fight. If you're able to watch, if you're only watching the fight on television and you're able to still watch the fights on television, on the apps, on the phone, however you watch your fights, if you're able to still watch the fights, you should care not what the location is. The crazy thing is that most of the time when the fights are overseas, they still put them on a time that works for U.S. TV or U.S. viewership. So what is it really about? My thing is, there's a lot of people who they want things to just stay the way they are. Like, I'm an old-fashioned type guy. You know what I'm saying? I like things. I like a lot of things that the way things were done in the past versus how they are now. But at the same time, when you look at a situation or a circumstance or a process or a procedure, whatever it is, a way of somebody was doing things and it was failing or it begins to fail, you can't continue to stick with that same business model. Status quo of doing boxing business, it actually has shown that it's not working anymore. The reality is that we watched, and I'm especially talking to y'all who love to big up PBC. I'm not an anti-PBC guy, but let's be honest. PBC is like the Silver Surfer going around destroying worlds. PBC, every network they've gone on, for the most part, if that network stayed loyal to PBC and stuck with them any length of time, they got out of boxing. You know what I'm saying? At some point. So, if you're loyal to that as a fan, and that's what you want to continue to see, then you want to see the demise of the sport of boxing as we know it. Because the reality is that if it was anything else that you saw with that type of failure rate, you wouldn't be big upping it and cheering it on and saying, hey, I want to see more of that. The reality is that the business model of boxing that we've seen over the last decades helped run, and I'm not putting this solely on PBC, so don't get me wrong in that regard. But that business model, we've saw it run several networks out of boxing, and the two biggest networks at that, Showtime and HBO. You could have told me 15 years ago that in 15 years, both Showtime and HBO will no longer be in the sport of boxing. You couldn't tell me, after ESPN realigned themselves with Top Rank and started putting on these cards and launched the ESPN Plus app, you could have told me that ESPN would be looking to kind of get out of boxing. I know they're not completely going to get out of boxing, but they're not looking to stay in boxing in the the way they are now, to the degree that they are now. So apparently something's broken and needs to be fixed. Am I all about there being one conglomerate or one big entity, you know, pretty much running the whole sport? No. But if that's getting us the fights that we want to see, that's getting the promotional outfits to work together, if that's getting us less fighters running around here with an O, because that's a big part of the problem, because you got all these O's because you guys aren't fighting each other. So when I look at all of that, that tells me that if I had to pick one or the other, give me what Turki Alalshikh is offering. You know, give me what we're starting to see more and more with the cooperation of the promoters and doing what they got to do to get these fights on. Fighters more willing to step in the ring and risk their O against other undefeated fighters or other fighters who are a threat. The main point of it is the fighters not fighting each other, promotional company not working together, the side of the street nonsense that I never subscribed to as a fan. That's what sank the ships of these networks. That's a large part of it. I know a lot of people will say it's other things, and maybe I'm sure there are other contributing factors. But from my vantage point, the biggest issue was not putting on the correct fights. Even if you look at Showtime's last year, they started putting on fights that made sense, but it was too little, too late. You know, and in the reality of it, one of the biggest fights that was made had to be forced. You know what I'm saying? I mean, so when you look at that, that plays a large part in it. Oversaturation of pay-per-view, a large part of it. You know, non-pay-per-view worthy cards being put on pay-per-view, large part of it. I don't mind paying pay-per-view for a pay-per-view worthy card, but don't give me a card that I used to could watch on Showbox on pay-per-view and tell me that it's a bargain. But like I said, you know, the biggest thing I got to say on this whole video, my main takeaway of this whole situation is that if boxing opts to keep things the way they have been in the past and not change, the results aren't going to change either. We're going to continue to see more and more outfits say, you know, boxing isn't profitable. I'm not going to stick with this. This is a losing effort, and I don't want to see that. So if that means that, you know, Turki Alalshikh, the Zone, whatever kind of affiliations and alignments have to take place to keep the sport of boxing going, and I'm all for that. That's all I got on it. D-Lo 404 Box. Catch me on the next. Peace.